I live in the East. If you've seen any of my train spotting videos, you'll know that my station of choice is Longniddry, a village situated on the East Coast Main Line, where we get Voyagers, Azumas, Nova 1s, Lumo trains and a bunch of rail tours too. You can find an awful lot of cool stuff on the East Coast, but I've never had a look at the West before, mainly because I don't have a reason to. So today I'll be comparing the two best lines that connect London to Scotland. There are countless train operators that serve the East and the West, so we're going to compare the ones that cover the most distance. In the East, we've got the main four, these being Grand Central, LNER, Lumo and Hull trains, each of which cover at least half of the line up to York. Being a relatively regular LNER user, I'd say the hate on the seats is slightly undeserved. I mean, sure, they're worse than the Mark IIIs and Mark IVs, but they aren't made of plastic. I think they're fine for a route as long as 4 hours. Plus, the kitchen makes great toasted ciabatta sandwiches. Lumo, however, is a different story. Despite running almost the same King's Cross to Edinburgh route as LNER, the low-cost part of it really stands out. I mean, sure, they put more effort into the seats and all, but they didn't really put any effort into anything else. I've never been on Grand Central, so I'm going to leave it to someone who actually knows about it. By that statement, I reckon he means the Voyagers and Corradias are just noisy for no reason, and I agree personally. Having a look at the interior, the seats look a bit small at first glance, and I've heard that the headrests dig into your shoulders if you're over 5'11". Over in Hull, we've just got recoloured LNER seats. Again, they're not bad, they're just not good either. Over in the West, our main dynamic duo is Avanti and London North Western. First of all, I will say that the 390 refurbishment was needed, and they did a good job too. The Averos also look pretty nice. The Voyagers, however, need to get out of here soon. Let me know in the comments of your thoughts on the Avanti interiors. I will say London North Western is a bit of a letdown. They've just got the standard to zero seats, and the way that they're configured would most likely make my legs hurt after half an hour. Bit of a mitigating factor though, this operator isn't made for you to do the full trip. If you want to get from, say, London to Crewe, you'd get Avanti. London North Western is just a cheaper and slower alternative that serves more stations. The East offers relatively average comfort across all of its intercity operators. I give the East a 6 out of 10 for quality. The West, however, I can't lie, these seats do look brilliant, but the West Midlands did ruin it a little. 8 out of 10 for quality altogether for them. Being the two lines with probably the least punctuality, the competition isn't very well existent. I grabbed 3 random hours and dates on real-time trains, and out of London King's Cross, a third of the LNER services returned at least 15 minutes late, and 1 Grand Central service was late. After looking at these statistics, I've realised that in reality, a third of the trains I've got with LNER have been at least 15 minutes late. Weird. Over on the West, an average of 2/3 of the Avanti West Coast services were either partially cancelled or at least 15 minutes late. There's a worker for Avanti West Coast in my Discord which you should join, and he often shares his woes about the trains he's meant to be attending being super late or cancelled. I mean, look at this! West Midlands is no better either. Look at this clip I just recorded. Not a single day is there not a train cancelled. They need to fix this. Trainsim 5 got it wrong. The 350 shouldn't be able to leave Euston at all. Most of the time, the East Coast is relatively punctual, plus it's only really LNER that screws it up for the rest of the line. 5 out of 10 for the East. The West, however, dear God, they need to fix this as soon as humanly possible. 2 out of 10. Most of the stock on the main lines nowadays are under 20 years old, which by most people's standards is considered at least modern. On the East Coast there are an awful lot of 8300s, including the 800, 801, 802 and 803. A little further south we find the 180s, the 221s and the 91s. The 91s still stand as the oldest stock on the East Coast main line at a surprising 35 years. Sadly, they don't run north of Leeds anymore. It all averages up to 14 years of age. Not bad. The West Coast is served by 350s, 390s, 221s, 805s, 807s and 730s. The majority of these trains are relatively new, and bring the average all the way down to just 8 years. I'm giving the West Coast 8 out of 10 for their stock, and the East gets 6. In the final standings, the East Coast got an average of 6.3 out of 10, which isn't actually bad. The West got an average of just 6, meaning the East Coast is better by just a tiny little bit. They're both relatively average anyway. That's all from me today. If you enjoyed, please do consider liking or subbing or any of that jazz, really. Also, if you've got a line or operator you'd like me to sum up, let me know in my Discord. Anyway, you're watching All Roads Trains, and for that I thank you. Goodbye.